friends, welcome to the point. In this session, we are discussing about President. Articles from 52 to 78 in Part 5 of our Constitution, it deals with Union Executive. Union Executive, it consists of President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers and Attorney General of India. The President is said to be the head of Indian state and he is the first citizen of India and he acts as a symbol of unity, integrity and solidarity of the nation. Now let's learn how is our President elected. Our President is not elected directly by the people, but he is elected by the members of Electoral College. Who are the members of this Electoral College? The elected members of both the houses of the Parliament, that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and the elected members of the state assemblies and the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the Union Territory of Delhi and Puducherry. And recently, since Jammu and Kashmir has been made as a union territory which has a separate legislature, even Jammu and Kashmir will also participate in the next president election. And who are not supposed to vote since they remain as a member in the Parliament. The nominated members of both the houses of Parliament, that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, those who are nominated, and the nominated members of the State Legislative Assembly and the members of the State Legislative Council. And State Legislative, even the members are not supposed to vote in the President election. And the nominated members of legislative assemblies of Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir, they do not participate in the election of President. If suppose a presidential election is announced and at that time think assembly is dissolved, and in that case the assembly members, those who are dissolved, they will be qualified to vote in presidential election since there are no new elected members in the assembly. The presidential election, it is held in a secret paper ballot system. In this system, the person, that is the person of the electoral college, one who is supposed to vote, he will be given a paper that he has to maintain the vote very secretly. He should not tell anyone that he is voting for so and so person. And this system is called as secret paper ballot system. The Constitution says that there should be some uniformity during the presidential election in the scale of representation of different states, as well as a parity between the states as a whole and the union at the election of the president. To achieve this parity, the number of votes which each elected member of the legislative assembly of each state and the parliament it is entitled to cast at such election, it is determined in the following manner. Like, every elected member of the legislative assembly of a state will have as many votes as there are multiples of 1000 in the quotient, which is obtained by dividing the population of the state by the total number of elected members of the assembly. And this can be expressed as value of the vote of MLA, which is equals to total population of the state divided by total number of elected members in the state legislative assembly. That is the total number of elected MLAs multiplied by 1 by 1000. And every elected member of either house of the parliament will have a number of votes which is obtained by dividing the total number of votes which is assigned to the MLAs of the state by the total number of elected members of both the houses of the parliament. And this can be expressed as value of vote of MP, which will be equal to total number of votes which is assigned to MLA whole divided by total number of MPs. The presidential election, it is held according to the system of proportional representation, which means by the single transferable vote. This single transferable vote, it is a proportional voting system and that is designed to achieve a fairly mixed proportional representation through the voters casting single transferable vote in a multi-seat organization or constituencies. And also, the presidential election is held in accordance with the voting by the secret ballot in a ballot paper. And this system will ensure us that the successful candidate is returned by the absolute majority of votes. If a candidate is to be declared as a president elected, and he must secure a fixed number of quota of the votes, and this quota of votes, it is determined by dividing the total number of valid votes, which is followed by the number of candidates to be elected. Here only one candidate is to be elected as a president. Plus 1 and adding 1 to the quotient, the formula can be expressed as electoral quota, which equals to total number of valid votes polled whole divided by 2 plus 1. Each member of the electoral college is given only one ballot paper, and the voter, while he is casting his vote, he is required to indicate his preferences by marking 1, 2, 3 and so on. He should mark his preferences in front of every candidate's name. This means the voter can indicate as many as preference as there are candidates participating for the election. In the first phase, the first preferences votes are being counted, and in case a candidate secures a required quota in this place, and then he is declared as a president, one who is elected by the electoral college. Otherwise, the process of the transfer of votes, it will be in motion. That means the ballots of the candidates who secures the least number of first preference, his votes are cancelled, and that means and his second preferences votes are transferred to the first preference votes of the other candidates, and this process will continue till any of the candidates secures a required quota. Any doubts and disputes regarding the election of the president, all those issues, it should be inquired and decided by the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court's decision will be final. If suppose there are many vacancies in the electoral college, and at that time the presidential election is being conducted and the president is elected, in such a situation, the election of a person as a president, it cannot be challenged due to the vacancies in the electoral college. Imagine if a person is against the constitution and that person has become a president and the Supreme Court comes to know that. In that case, those actions are invalidated and the person, he continued to remain in the force. What are the qualifications for a person to conduct in the election as a president? First thing, he should be a citizen of India, and the person one who is participating in the election should be above 35 years of age. That means he should be completed 35 years of age. He must not hold any office of profit either in the state government or in the union government or any other local authority or any other public authority. A person must be qualified for the election as a member of Lok Sabha, and he must be registered as an elector in India. The nomination paper of a candidate, it must be signed by at least 50 electors as a proposers and 50 electors as a seconders. Every candidate, one who is participating for the election of a president, he must be subscribed by at least 50 electors as a proposers and 50 electors as seconders. And apart from this, he should deposit a 15,000 rupees in Reserve Bank of India. And this deposit, it is called as security deposit. This security deposit, it is liable to be forfeited in case the candidate fails to secure 1/6 of the votes polled. In the year 1997, the security deposit, it was only 2,500 rupees. And in 1997, they increased the budget to 15,000. Why? Because to discourage the non-serious candidates. Oath and affirmation by the President. Oath and affirmation, they both are one and the same. Before entering the office, the president, he has to make a promise. He has to take an oath, or we can say that he has to give his affirmation that he will faithfully execute the office to preserve, protect and defend the constitution and the law, and he would devote himself to the service and well-being of the people of India. These are the things he has to take an oath before entering into the office. The oath of the office to the president, it is administered by Chief Justice of India, and if suppose a Chief Justice of India is not available, in that case a senior most judge of the Supreme Court will be present on behalf of Chief Justice of India. Suppose we can say that a president is ill or he is admitted in hospital or something like that. In that case, acting president will come into charge, that is the vice president will come. In that case, the vice president, he should take an oath and then enter into the office of the president. Term of office. The president holds office for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office. He can resign at any time from his office by giving his resignation letter to the Vice President of India. President can also be removed from the office before completion of his term by the process called impeachment. The President can hold office behind the term of his 5 years until a newly elected President takes a charge. Also, the President is available for re-election to that office. In India, a person participating for the presidential election has no limit. He can participate in the re-election as many number of times, and this is not the case in USA. A person cannot be elected to the office of the president more than twice. The president's office, he can be terminated in two ways. One is by giving a resignation letter to the Vice President of India, and other is by the violation of the Constitution by the process of impeachment. Impeachment of the President. The President, he can be removed from his office before the expiry of his term, that is 5 years, by the process called impeachment. The President can be impeached only for the violation of the Constitution, and it is a quasi-judicial procedure. It is said to be a quasi-judicial procedure because the nominated person of either Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, he can participate in the impeachment of the president even though they do not participate in his elections. And the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the states and the union territories of Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu Kashmir, they do not participate in the impeachment of the president even though they participate in his elections. And so far, no president in our country has been impeached. The impeachment procedure, it can be initiated either by Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. But the resolution, it must be signed by 1/4 of the total membership of that house. And a 14 days notice period should be given to the president. And after the impeachment resolution, it is passed by 2/3 majority of the total membership of that house, and it should be sent to other house, and the other house will investigate the charges. That is, if Lok Sabha initiates the charges on the president, then Rajya Sabha will investigate the charges, and if Rajya Sabha initiates, Lok Sabha will investigate the charges. If both the houses passes the impeachment resolution by 2/3 of the total membership, then the president will be removed from his office from that date on which the resolution is passed. Vacancy in the President's office. A vacancy is said to occur in the President's office on the expiry of his tenure of 5 years, and if the President resigns, and if the President is being impeached, and if the President is dead, and when he becomes disqualified to hold office, or when his election is being declared void. In these cases, the President's office will be vacant. If the sitting President's term is going to expire, and at that time a new fresh election will be conducted to fill the vacancy before the expiration of his term, and in case if there is any delay in conducting the election of a new president by any reason, the outgoing president, he continues to hold the office beyond his term of 5 years until a new successor takes the charge. And this is provided by the Constitution in order to prevent an interregnum, in order to prevent the vacancy in president's office. In this situation, the vice president, he does not get the opportunity to act as a president or to discharge the functions of the president. If suppose the president office falls vacant by his resignation, removal or the death, and in that case, the election should be conducted within 6 months from the date of the occurrence of vacancy. The newly elected president, he remains in the office for a full term of 5 years from the date where he takes the charge as a president. And when a vacancy occurs in the office of a president due to the resignation, removal, death, and then the vice president will act as a president until a new president is elected. And further, when the sitting president is unable to discharge his functions due to the absence of illness or any other cause, the vice president will take over the functions of the president. In case the office of a vice president is vacant, and then the Chief Justice of India, or if Chief Justice of India is not available, in that case, the senior most judge of the Supreme Court, he acts as a president and he discharges the function of the president. At that time, the vice president will enjoy all the powers and immunities of the president, like emoluments, allowances, and privileges which are determined by the parliament. Powers and functions of the president. There are many powers and functions which are enjoyed by the president, and those are the executive powers, which is also called as administrative powers, legislature powers, judicial powers, military powers, diplomatic powers, emergency powers, and financial powers. Now let's discuss about all the powers and functions of the president. The executive power or the administrative powers and functions of the president are all the executive actions of the government of India. It is formally taken in the name of president, and president can make rules by specifying the manner in which the orders and other instruments are made and executed in his name, and that shall be authenticated. President makes rule for the convenient transaction of business of the union government, and also he allocates the business among the ministers. President appoints prime ministers and other ministers as well, and these people, they hold the office during his pleasure. President also appoints the Attorney General of India and he determines his remuneration. The Attorney General will also hold the office during the pleasure of the President. President appoints the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners, the chairman and the members of UPSC, that is Union Public Service Commission, and the governors of the state, the chairman and the members of the Finance Commission, and so on. President can appoint a commission to investigate into the condition of SC, ST and other backward classes. He also can appoint an interstate council to promote center-state and interstate cooperation. These are the executive powers of the president. And let's have a look on legislative powers. Since president, he is an integral part of a parliament in India, he enjoys legislative powers. President can summon or prorogue the parliament and dissolve the Lok Sabha. He also can summon the joint sitting of the both houses of the parliament, and which is presided by the Speaker of Lok Sabha. After every general election and the first session of every year, the President can address the Parliament. President can send message to House of the Parliament, whether it may be with respect to the bill pending in the Parliament or some other thing. He can also appoint any member of Lok Sabha to preside its proceedings when the offices of both Speaker and Deputy Speaker falls vacant. And similarly, President can also appoint any member of Rajya Sabha to preside over its proceedings when offices of both the chairman and deputy chairman falls vacant. President nominates 12 members of the Rajya Sabha, one who has a special knowledge or practical experience in literature, science, art and social service. He also nominates 2 members in Lok Sabha, those who belong to Anglo-Indian community. President decides on questions of disqualification of the members of the parliament with the consultation of Election Commission. When a bill is sent to the President after it has been passed by the Parliament, he has 3 options. President can simply give his assent to the bill, he can withhold his assent to the bill, and he can also return the bill. He can't return a money bill for reconsideration of the Parliament. President makes regulation for the peace, progress and good government of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu and Ladakh. And in case of Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir, the President can legislate by making regulations, but there is a condition that the Assembly is suspended or dissolved. In that condition, a President can make regulations of these union territories. Financial powers of a President. The financial powers and functions of the President are: money bills should be introduced in the Parliament only with the prior permission of the President. Demand for any grant, it cannot be made except on his recommendations. President can make any advances out of Contingency Fund of India to meet any unforeseen expenditure. President constitutes a finance commission after every 5 years so that they would recommend the distribution of revenues between the centers and the states. Judicial powers of a President. President appoints the Chief Justice and the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. He can seek advice from Supreme Court on any question of law or fact. And the advice given by the Supreme Court does not bind on the President. It is up to the President whether he follows the advice or just leave it. President has a power to grant pardon, reprieve, respite, remission of a punishment, or even suspend, remit or commute the sentence of any person convicted of an offence. In all the cases, the punishment or the sentence is by a court-martial, then only the President can pardon it. Diplomatic powers. The international treaties and agreements that are arranged and concluded on behalf of the President. But still the agreement and the treaties, it should be approved by the Parliament. President represents India in international forums and affairs and sends and receives diplomats like ambassadors, high commissioners and so on. Military power of a President. President is said to be the supreme commander of the defense forces of India, and in that capacity he appoints the chiefs of Army, Navy and the Air Force. He can declare war or conclude peace subject to the approval of the Parliament. Emergency powers. In addition to normal powers, the Constitution also has given extraordinary powers on the President so that he could deal 3 types of emergencies like national emergency, President's rule and the financial emergency. Veto power of the President. We have already discussed that the President has 3 choices on a bill. That is, he can give his assent, he can withhold the bill, or he can return the bill if it is not a money bill. In this case, the veto power is enjoyed by the President. First is absolute veto. In absolute veto, President can withhold the assent of the bill that is passed by the legislature. Next is qualified veto. Qualified veto, it can be overridden by the legislature with a higher majority. And next is suspensive veto. In this suspensive veto, even this bill can be overridden with the legislature with an ordinary majority. That is a simple majority. Next is pocket veto. Here the President does not take any action on the bill passed by the legislature. He simply puts it aside. This is known as pocket veto. Among these 4 veto powers, Indian President, he does not enjoy a qualified veto power. It is possessed only to American President. President of India enjoys only 3 veto powers. They are absolute veto, suspensive veto and pocket veto. In absolute veto, it refers to the power of a president to withhold his assent of a bill which is passed by the parliament. If it is not passed and it is withheld, and then the bill ends there itself. Why? Because without the president's assent, it cannot become an act. Usually, absolute veto, it is exercised in following 2 cases. One is with respect to private member bills, that is the bill introduced by any member of a parliament who is not a minister. And the second one is with respect to the government bills when the cabinet resigns and the new cabinet advises the president not to give his assent to such bills. Next comes suspensive veto. The president exercises this veto power when he returns a bill for reconsideration of the parliament. And if the bill is passed again by the parliament with or without any amendments and it is presented in front of the president, and it is mandatory for the president that he should give his assent to that bill. This means the presidential veto is overridden here with the same ordinary majority. That is a simple majority. Pocket veto of a president. In this case, the president, he neither ratifies nor rejects nor returns the bill, but he simply keeps the bill pending for an indefinite period. And this power of the president, in this case, the parliament cannot take any action of this bill. And that's why this is known as pocket veto. In case of USA, the president has to return the bill for reconsideration within 10 days. And that is why it is said that the pocket of Indian president is bigger than that of American president. Veto power of a president over state legislation. The president has veto power with respect to state legislation also. A bill that is passed by a state legislature, it can become an act only if it receives the assent of a governor or the president. When a bill passed by state legislature, it is presented to the governor for his assent, he has 4 choices. He can give his assent, he can withhold the bill, he can return the bill if it is not a money bill, and he can also reserve the bill for consideration of the president. And when it comes to the consideration of the president can give his assent, he can withhold his assent, or he may direct the governor to return the bill for the reconsideration of the state legislature. Remember, if the bill it is passed again by the state legislature with or without any amendments and it is presented to the president again for his assent, the president is not bound to give his assent to that bill as in the case of the parliament. This means that the state legislature, it cannot override the veto power of the president. President can exercise a pocket veto in respect of state legislation also. Ordinance making power of the president. President can issue an ordinance when any one of the house of the parliament is not in session, and the maximum validity of an ordinance given is from 6 months and 6 weeks. An ordinance will expire after 6 weeks once both houses of the parliament are in session. A constitutional amendment cannot be made through ordinance route. Ordinance route, it is envisaged for immediate action. That is, if President is satisfied that the circumstance exists which render it necessary for him to take an immediate action, and in such case, President can make an ordinance. An ordinance that is made by the President, it has the same force and effect as an act of a parliament, but every such ordinance, it should be laid before both houses of the parliament and cease to operate at the expiration of 6 weeks from the reassembly of a parliament. If both the houses approves the ordinance made by the president, and then the ordinance becomes an act. Pardoning power of the president. Article 72 of the Constitution It says that the President to grant pardons to persons who have been tried and convicted of any offences in all the cases where the punishment or sentence is for an offence against a union law, and punishment or sentence is by the court-martial, and the punishment is regarding the death sentence. The pardoning power of the President is independent of judiciary. The pardoning power of the President, it is his executive power. The President, while exercising this power, he does not sit as a court of appeal. If the President feels that the punishment given for a person is unduly harsh, then he can reject it, and he can keep the doors open for correcting any judicial errors in the operation of the law. The pardoning power of the President includes pardon, commutation, remission, respite, and reprieve. Pardon means it removes both the sentence and the conviction and completely absolves the convict for all the sentences, punishment, and disqualification of the person. Commutation means it denotes the substitution of one form of punishment for a lighter form of punishment. For example, a death sentence given to a person, it can be made as a life imprisonment. Remission, it means reducing the period of sentence without changing its character. For example, if a person is given a life sentence, it can be reduced to 10 years of imprisonment. Respite, it denotes awarding a lesser sentence in place of one originally awarded due to some special fact like physical disability of a convict or pregnancy of a woman offender, etc. Reprieve, it implies a stay of execution of a sentence, especially that of death, for a temporary period, and the purpose is to enable the convict to have time to seek pardon or commutation from the President. Hope you have gained some knowledge about the President. In the next session, let's discuss about the Vice President. Thank you.